Sound check by Support Act. I hope wherever you are, whatever stage of lockdown you find yourself at, that you're doing okay. My name is Luke and I'm the Industry Relations and Partnerships Manager for Support Act. And today it's really quite timely with the expansion of our Wellbeing Helpline at Support Act that I'd like to welcome Ben Steele, actor and filmmaker behind The Show Must Go On. Soundcheck. Welcome, Ben.
G'day, Luke. How are you, mate? You going okay over there?
I'm doing okay. So just to fill you in, the purpose of Soundcheck is to talk about mental health and wellbeing in the music industry, and also now obviously across the whole arts sector. Because last week, Support Act expanded our services, our Support Act Wellbeing Helpline, with money from the federal government for people who work in the arts industry, who are artists, crew, and anyone else behind the scenes. So it's perfect that you're joining us today, Ben.
Yeah, I can't support the Wellbeing Helpline. It's a fantastic service. So I really 100% endorse the expansion into the whole of the arts and entertainment sector.
Yeah, and we had a bit of a discussion before we hit record today, and it was just weird. It was kind of creepy that I had thought, well, it'd be great to get Ben on right now. You've already been doing such great advocacy work, obviously with the documentary, but looking through the emails and we see this email saying, hey, it'd be great if we could expand the helpline for the whole sector, the whole arts sector. And I was like, well, that's weird. We're talking about just that thing today.
I know. And I've personally used the service myself as well. And I found it incredibly useful and also just a seamless process. And I think one of the fantastic things about it is, folks that work in the industry, we work really weird, strange hours. In my part of the screen industry, you might be working nights, doing night shoots and things like that. So when you maybe need some help or support, the traditional services are all closed, So the fact that there's a 24/7 wellbeing helpline that's available to us, if you are dealing with any aspect of your mental health or wellbeing, doesn't necessarily have to be in crisis, but you might just have some pressures mounting up, or had a really shit day and you want to reach out and speak to somebody, you can call the wellbeing helpline. So can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. It is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And one thing that I'd like to see when looking at the stats is our clinicians awake more in the middle of the night responding to people. So you've got to make sure that they use that 24-hour-a-day aspect of it. It's always there for you when you need it. You don't have to wait till the next day, so to speak. So make sure. So Ben, first question for you today. What's your routine look like through lockdown? Has it changed your life at all?
Yeah, definitely there's aspects that have changed, but I think like most people in the industry, particularly, I guess, the creators, like the writers and that kind of, like, people that are trying to get projects off the ground, like there's a lot of time you do spend at home in your home office. If you're not out on location filming or in a studio or something like that, a lot of your time is at home. So I'm quite comfortable and used to working at home. I guess for me, the biggest kind of changes to the routine are literally some of the things that I use to balance my life and create a little bit more of a balanced, and a healthier mindset. So things like going to the gym, which brings me so much kind of relaxation and something that I do for myself. Like, I really get a lot out of it. We can't do that anymore. Obviously you can work out at home, but there's something for me, not that I really interact too much with people at the gym, but there's something about the fact that there's other people there and I'm going somewhere to work out rather than working out at home with weights. It's one thing that I can't do. And the other big one for me is surfing, which I just went for my first surf since lockdown last Tuesday. So it was 8 weeks without surfing as well. And again, that was one of the things that really kind of calms me and reconnects me to nature, and connects me to the present moment as well, because I don't really focus on anything else other than, the wave that I'm about to catch or waiting for the next wave. So those two aspects were kind of taken away through coronavirus, that I've had to just be really mindful and aware that I was missing those things, and try to find other things that I could replace them with. But also just the awareness that they're gone now and they're not going to be gone forever. So I can get through this patch that maybe I am missing them, was even helpful.
It's really interesting you bring up those things that are really about self-care, but in your normal life, when you're just living it and doing these activities, which are things that you love, you don't see them as self-care. So it's almost when you're in lockdown and they're taken away from you, you have to kind of manufacture or think about more about things that you could do in the home that are about your own self-care, or about moments where you can be mindful about what you're doing in your life.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I learnt through making the Show Must Go On documentary, and just developing some of these skills that I learnt from people about myself is literally that kind of awareness around some of these, I guess, perceived negative emotions or negative situations, and just having that awareness of something that I'm going through down that path, whether it's pain or I'm getting upset or something, or anger. Having the awareness and then kind of stepping back a little bit to investigate what's going on for me kind of really helps. So that awareness I've taken into the coronavirus situation, where I'm actually now understanding or seeing things in a different way, like just how much in my daily life I wasn't as aware or of how much I needed physical connection with people, and not necessarily touching physical, but just having them in close proximity to me. So kind of now have found much more kind of gratitude towards something like that. I think coronavirus has really connected our communities, whether they're our neighbors or, you know, the state or the city that we live in, or the town that we live in, and the world that we live in. It's really kind of connected people together because we're all going through this together.
The irony of isolation is that the world feels smaller than it ever did, I would think, even though we're more isolated than ever before.
Yeah, totally. So it's quite weird, isn't it, that that's the case? But I think if you're kind of in tune to that, so rather than getting stuck in that, I can't do what I want right now, or I'm feeling quite trapped, to actually kind of look at some of the positives that are coming from the situation, and a newfound awareness for the freedoms before Corona that we had, and now we don't. So far much more gratitude towards that. So kind of going through this and then coming out the other side, just having that awareness that my gratitude of certain freedoms was lacking. So now, you know, I think a lot of us have that appreciation for the life that we, you know, took for granted, perhaps.
Absolutely. And like, gratitude is something that we spoke about in the last episode of Soundcheck. And for a lot of people, talking about being grateful for things is unusual or abstract or a little bit Instagram, but I definitely think through the lockdown that, you know, being grateful for the basics that you took for granted before lockdown is something that people will be not taking for granted, or having gratitude for going forward.
And I think with gratitude as well, like, because at the beginning on like my journey of like self-discovery that way, it kind of felt a little bit wankery, the whole gratitude kind of principle. So I kind of get that. But the way that I kind of found my way through that is, if you do just kind of just commit to kind of bringing your awareness back to a bit of gratitude, hopefully daily, but as much as you kind of can, the more that you're kind of doing that, the more that you actually can really feel on a deeper level the benefits of that and the real appreciation. So, you know, just naming things that you're grateful for, food, air, or this and da. But if you're not actually really connected to what you're grateful for or why you're saying it, if you don't actually really just sit there for a second and really kind of pause to take in what would life be like with far more dirtier, polluted air than what we breathe right now, you don't get the benefits of the gratitude. So it's about just going just that little bit deeper, and it can start with being quite, you know, just simple, just looking around the room. I'm grateful for this and that possession, and my dog and my partner and this and this and this. But then as you kind of just sit with it a little bit longer, the benefits start to come over you. And that was my way to kind of, my experience for finding my way into a less wanky, just surface level bit of gratitude that, maybe is, you know, you see on social media and stuff. But I completely get it. It was the same with meditation as well. Like, I always felt I never quite locked into that myself.
I'm still working on that. I'm still working
Yeah.
on the meditation thing.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be because it just, like the perception around it is that it has to be for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And that barrier to kind of go, can I actually sit down for that long, can be a bit overwhelming.
Yep.
And I heard this podcast once, I can't remember who had this, who shared this information, which I kind of took on, but just having minute meditations. And the principle that I learned from that particular podcast was literally pick one of the routines that you have in your day that you do a couple of times. So drink a coffee, drink a water, go to the loo, get in the car was the one for me. I was getting in the car quite a lot when I heard that. And just whatever the activity you decide to meditate on, just take a moment once you're about to do that activity. So brush your teeth, and really just be present with brushing your teeth, and really just be mindful and feeling what you're doing associated with that, taking in the environment. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you tasting, and all that, and kind of breathe as you're kind of doing it. And that's all it kind of took. So so it's not actually taking any more time out of my day if I do it when I'm brushing my teeth twice a day. But what it is teaching us is to kind of really bring us ourselves to like a present moment and really kind of ground us somewhere. So the minute meditation kind of principle was the way that I could start to get into meditation in a bigger sense, I guess. But yeah, essentially meditation is just about bringing yourself to become present. So why can't we do it in a minute?
I certainly think it's good advice. I mean, a minute would feel like a million years if you decided to center yourself and ground yourself in the moment. But I think I wanted to have a bit of a discussion with you. Obviously, the documentary, The Show Must Go On, that you were behind, it's a fantastic documentary shining a light on mental health issues within the entertainment industry. So perhaps you want to take us through like where the idea came from. What was your purpose when you set out to make the doco, and what's a bit of your mental health story behind the documentary?
Yeah, sure. So The Show Must Go On kicked off in about, 2016. And I was just really noticing, I came back from overseas. I was away for about 9 years, and I was kind of really struggling to find my way back into the industry as an actor and a filmmaker. And I started talking to other people and realized that there was a lot of changes happening and a lot of people were kind of struggling. And so I initially kind of started out thinking, okay, maybe I should just make a few mental health kind of videos for people to kind of, share their stories and kind of talk about some of the struggles that we face and some of the things that they do to cope. And then the idea just really just started to grow. And I felt like this was going to be a bigger thing than just, a few little short videos online. And so I was like, okay, I had all the equipment, fortunately, because, build up my kit that way. And I just started interviewing people and talking about it. So it kind of just came out of that, I guess, instinct that stuff was going on. And I just felt like I just wanted to get to the bottom of it myself. Like, what's really going on here? And then shortly after that, I started on that journey, the Entertainment Assist and Victoria University world first research into exactly this topic came out and revealed that we have double the suicide rates in our industry compared to the general population. Anxiety and depression are through the roof compared to the general population as well. So that really kind of validated that, oh wow, this is a real thing. It's not just something I'm feeling or observing, but there's more going on here. And it really drove my mission to want to really get to the bottom of it, to help people. At the time, I wasn't really aware that that I had, depression and anxiety myself. I just felt like I just wasn't coping very well, and there was some struggles, and like anyone, just like felt like I was just dealing with shit like everyone else was. But as I started to go on and talk to people more and more, and then starting to get some help and counseling myself, I realized, how close to the edge I kind of really was. So that's kind of the impetus of, I guess, why I wanted to make this film, to really kind of just have some honest conversations with people and find out what they were doing.
You cover some of it in the film, and which is available on ABC iView, and I encourage anyone to go and watch it. I just gave it a second viewing, and it's very, very good viewing. at 55 minutes long. You can get it done and it's well worth it. But like, why do you think you cover it in the documentary, but why do you think there is such a high instance of mental illness in the Australian entertainment industry?
I think there's a lot of pressures that we face all happening at the same time that really compounds the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I believe is like one of the main reasons that folks in arts and entertainment have such higher levels of mental health challenges compared to the general population. A lot of the issues that we face are comparable to other industries. So, nerves or, some kind of anxiety performance-wise. Mm-hmm. Folks out there in the real world, a lot of people don't like, doing presentations or public speaking, so they can maybe share that kind of anxiety. A lot of other industries like us aren't really funded very well, so that kind of job security is also a bit fickle. But the fact that creatives or people in the arts and entertainment industry are facing multiple things all at the same time, I believe is one of the factors that contribute to that. I mean, issues.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and one of the absolutely staggering pieces of data that comes out of the documentary is the stat that 65% of people live under the average wage in the Australian entertainment industry. And that whilst living on this uncertain, feast and famine type budget throughout a career, you do have to deal with all the uncertainties of a creative career, plus the fact that your identity is so linked to your art, because that is what is expected of artists. And it's no different with crew as well, uncertain working conditions, uncertain wages, and a linking of your identity to what you do. That was absolutely staggering. 65% of people living under the average household wage.
Yeah, and I think, potentially part of the reason, behind that, or, we've a lot of us have probably heard, well, if you're not happy in the industry, get out of it, by people that are outside the industry. Many times. Right. But what people don't understand, which you briefly mentioned there, is just how closely linked our identity is into what we're doing or the career that we're pursuing. Like, we really do feel that it's what we're meant to do. It's we're born to do. A lot of us have been doing it for an incredibly long time. So what else am I going to do with my life? This is all I know. So there's a lot of complications linked in if our own self-worth is linked into this one thing that we're doing. And that certainly was my case. I was an actor, and if I wasn't acting, or if I wasn't achieving the roles or the level of success that I felt like I deserved, I just felt like a failure. I felt like there's something wrong with me, and that was incredibly, troubling.
There's that moment with your mum, which I find quite a candid moment, where she basically says, well, you can do something, you've got to do something different. And whether she's talking specifically about acting or whether it's about like how you're looking after yourself mentally, that moment really struck a chord with me, because I was thinking about the many times that I've had the conversation with someone about how I've been feeling and how it's related to, the art I'm pursuing or whatever. And it's just like, mate, you just got to do something different. It's like, well, it's not just that easy always, is it?
Yeah. And one of the other factors, that I think is quite unique in our industry is just how sensitivity and vulnerability and emotions, like, we deal in the emotional world. That's part of our job. We're dealing with such matters. Most other jobs are pushing all that stuff down and away. You don't bring your emotions or your baggage or your history into work, like your personal history into work. Everything about what we do as storytellers, whether you're writing a song or doing a ballet or whatever part of the industry you're working in, we are telling that. We're sharing the human experience. So that's the kind of currency of the world that we live in, is that sensitivity, emotions, vulnerability. And if that's the work environment that you're working in, it's kind of very different to any other workplace. And it's potentially maybe a little bit more volatile or a bit unclear. How do you function in a workplace like that? There's no guidelines about that. There's guidelines for in the corporate world to leave all that crap at home, don't deal with that. But in our world, it's part of what we do.
You bring fun into the work more than the other way around. Yeah,
yeah, and it's part of the creative process that you're dealing with that. So if you're dealing with these kind of things and you're questioning life, and you're bringing your kind of lived experience and personal life into the job and the art that you're creating, you're kind of living in that world a lot and churning it around and asking yourself questions, which is a beautiful thing. And you have a lot of empathy for other people that way. But it's also, it's a tricky thing. You're bringing up these sensitivities, but yet you're in a very cutthroat industry where sensitive people shouldn't really be or thrive, because it's so, rejection filled, and there's so many, things going on in our industry. So it's kind of a dichotomy that way. You have to be sensitive, but you have to be hard skinned.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you do that? You just have to learn how to navigate it. That's all. That's
true. Well, it brings us to the next question, which is about support and support mechanisms for our industry and those barriers. I mean, what do you see as some of the barriers for asking help for someone in the arts? And do you still think that people within the entertainment sector see opening up about mental illness as a weakness or a threat to their livelihood in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like in the past, and I'm really hoping this is changing, and I think it is changing, that reaching out for help in the emotional, psychological kind of realm could be in the past perceived as, as you're weak, or it's a weakness, or I don't really know how to handle that, or whatnot. So I do think in the past it used to be that, but I think, more and more great things are happening in this space. Support acts are there to help people. Entertainment assists are there to help everybody in the arts and entertainment industry. There's a lot of people talking about this. The more people that are talking and sharing their stories, like they did in my doco, the more that it's going to help destigmatize this. So the barriers to seeking help is an interesting one, because generally our income is lower. Getting some kind of psychological help or care costs money. So I think that can be a barrier for help. And it's certainly at the beginning for myself, when I did the opening Googling around about how much it was going to cost, I was like, I can't afford that. I can't afford to, go to one, psych appointment, let alone how many am I going to need? So there are certain barriers, but there's also help available that is for free. So if you don't know how to navigate the system, it can be a barrier, to get help. There is a myth of a barrier, in the creative realm as well, that like what I was saying before, we are using our personal experiences in the art that we create. And there's a bit of a myth that if you get better, if you get healthier, that your creativity is going to go away, that I need to keep perpetuating this pain or this drama or this whatever in my life, because that's where the great songs come from. That's where the great art comes from. And that's not actually true.
You'll find lots of artists reflect upon their careers and find that a lot of their best art did come when they were, not using the gear as much as they were, or drinking as much, or in the depression hole, or whatever they were going through hole. There was not, upon reflection, their most productive times, so for some still, but right.
But I think it's also that thing of you have that experience in your life that you can always refer back to. We have great imaginations that way. You can always kind of go back to that and relive it and come at it from a different perspective. So to be perpetuating an issue or a problem that way, just because you think it's helping your art, just seems a little silly. It'd be the same, like, if you had a broken leg, would you really want to keep having a broken leg because you think it's helping your art? Like, I don't know.
That's a really good imagery and a very good point. Last question. So what are you doing now to look after your own mental health? What's your ongoing conversation with yourself about looking after yourself mentally?
So my dog is a great source of joy for me. So taking him for walks, which was always part of.
Concur with that. My dog is also my major mental health help.
Yeah, I mean, they're just the best, and, whether you've got other animals or anything around as well. Nature, when we're able to get out in it, is an amazing one. I think for me, it's just about kind of going a bit easy on myself in this time. It's quite easy to jump on ourselves and kind of beat ourselves up where, oh, I should be doing more, or, trying to get ahead, or I've got this downtime now because the industry shut down, and oh, I should be doing this or that, or retraining or this or that. So I'm kind of just trying to go a little bit more easy on myself. When those emotions or those negative thoughts or negative feelings or something's happened that I react to strongly, I'm just kind of having the awareness of what's going on, and then trying to just dig deep a little bit beneath that, because that's where the true lessons come from. And we can't exclude the pain or the hurt or the negative emotions from our life. If we want to be a full human, you have to have the whole human experience, which includes everything. So I kind of look for the lesson in the more painful or hurtful emotions. And just kind of go easy on myself.
Yeah, great. Ben, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much for the amazing work that you put into The Show Must Go On, and for your ongoing advocacy for Support Act and the arts sector's mental health in general.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, and good luck with everyone out there, and stay safe and strong.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.